Welcome, everyone, to Budweiser's weekday Sportsbeat with IrishBreakdown.com. I'm Vince D'Addario. That is Jesse Stiers, and we are here for the full 2 hours tonight, 5 to 7.
Let's go, baby.
Yeah, man, we're ready to rock and roll. We got all kinds of stuff to talk about today as we lead up to Notre Dame's game against the Pittsburgh Panthers, which will kick off at noon Eastern time, and you can find that game right here on Sports Radio WSBT. So definitely check back on Saturday, and I will go ahead and pub the pregame show as well, because Notre Dame is at Pittsburgh this Saturday at 12 o'clock, and you'll hear the radio call right here on Sports Radio WSBT. The game day show is live from 8 to 11 Eastern time. Join Tim Grau, Jim Irizarry, Eric Hansen, and Tyler Horka before the Irish take on the Panthers this Saturday. This week's guests are Terry Hanratty and Trevor Rulin. So tune in for the game day show again this Saturday from 8 to 11 Eastern time on Sports Radio WSBT and the Sports Radio WSBT app. So definitely want to check that out. We got a lot to going on today. Jesse, Marcus Freeman met the media, and he kind of gave an update, obviously, on the in and out list, questionable, out, all those fun things. So we'll talk about that. And then he touched on numerous topics. And so we've got those sound bites as well that we will kind of kick around. We'll listen to them, decide, whatever, based on what he has to say, and kind of go from there. And then, Jesse, you have promised the people a whiteboard. Are you prepared? Are you prepared for that?
Vince, I told you this morning I got up, had a workout, had a super productive day at work. I've been chugging coffee all day. I put in the time to put together a nice whiteboard, got a little bit of a breakdown of Pat Narduzzi's defense. Hopefully we'll calm some people down. He's got a good defense, right?
Sure.
But Notre Dame has superior talent. They just have to do the right things.
Okay. So are we thinking last segment of the first hour, or do you need 2 segments, my friend?
No, probably the last segment of the first hour.
Okay, so stay tuned. That'll be around the 5:45 neighborhood, taking us up to the top of the hour. So make sure you stay tuned for that. So before we get to Jesse's whiteboard, and then of course at 6 o'clock, rapid fire time. We've got some great topics to hit on rapid fire. We got people trying to take away your bets, Jesse.
You saw that.
I did see that, and I have a feeling you're going to be very passionate about that particular topic. Even though Ohio already restricts you, by the way.
Collegiately.
Okay, only collegiately. Well, now the pros are coming after you. Okay. All right, well, we'll get to that at the 6 o'clock hour when we hit rapid fire. But let's talk about Marcus Freeman and his noon Zoom press conference that he had today. And this was the one that, is I guess the best way to put it is under wraps. It's not a public press conference. So what we do is we try to pull some audio from said press conference and talk about it. First thing on the list is the injury update. A few guys have moved either from questionable to they're playing, or from questionable to out for the game. And so there are 2 names still on the questionable list. We've got tight end Cooper Flanagan. His is a left Achilles injury. And then defensive lineman Donovan Heinisch is questionable with a concussion. Anything stand out there for you?
No, I think having Heinisch back would be great. But, they didn't have him last game. So, you just got to kind of move on.
Agreed. Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more on that one. And all right, so let's move over to something that's a little more interesting here, the out for the game. And this list has grown significantly. I will just go through the list, and then I'll just ask you what you think of the list. So here we go. Kicker, Noah Burnett with a right hip. Wide receiver, Jaden Greathouse with a right thigh. He was questionable, but now he's out. And then you get your guys that we know have been out and will be out for a little while. You've got offensive linemen, Charles Jagasaw, Peter Jones, Billy Shrout. They're all out for the game. And then defensive lineman, Gabriel Rubio, still nursing that left elbow. And Sean Sevillano Jr. is nursing a bit of a left ankle. So all of those names are out for the game. Anything stand out?
I don't think anything significant is out there. If Heinisch can't go, you'd have 3 defensive linemen then, potentially down. So you would be, maybe concerned about the defensive lineman depth, but you knew about Jagasaw, you knew about Shrouth. And I think Burnett it's not surprising, but he's officially there. I think Burnett's big because I don't know if he's ever going to really come back type situation.
Yeah, the Burnett one is very interesting because, he was always either questionable or ready to go. And then they named Eric Schmidt the starter, and now he's been on the out list the last 2 weeks.
Right.
So, what does that say? I'd have to look back to see how many games he's actually participated in. Maybe I don't know what his red shirt situation is, all of those kinds of things that they're trying to help him out, save it, or if he's just out completely. And then, of course, the Jaden Greathouse situation, he was questionable. Now he's listed as out. And we got a little bit more information during the last press conference.
Yeah.
At kind of the severity of the injury that he's dealing with. I mean, I've never heard of a situation. Now, granted, I'm not a doctor or a trainer or anything else, but I've never heard of a situation where they had to drain a thigh. And that's what they had to do for Jaden Greathouse.
Yeah, they had to drain some blood out, right? It's some sort of like blood pocket buildup. Doesn't sound necessarily great. I know he's, really trying to rehab what he's got going on, but that's just another setback, to be honest with you, Vince. Like that doesn't sound like it's trending in the right direction.
Yeah, I agree. That it's not a good thing. And I saw him when I was at the game on Saturday against Navy, during pregame, and we're talking pregame, when they're out there in shorts and t-shirts and kind of running around and doing some stuff. He was running around doing some stuff. He didn't look too terrible, at least from the 9th floor, of the press box. This is kind of hard to tell. I'm kind of looking through my binoculars.
I was going to say, you didn't bring the binoculars?
Oh, no, I had them. I was binocling it, trying to figure out who everybody was. Because some of the guys are really nice to me and they wear the shirts with their jersey numbers on them. And then some guys do not.
You're like, who is this guy?
Yeah, it's a little bit more complicated for me, who's not completely familiar with the roster from a, pick them out of a lineup situation. But anyway, he was running around, doing some stuff. And so hopefully, he'll be able to come back before the end of the season. And we actually have a question about that in rapid fire. So stay tuned for that one at the top of the hour. Jaden Greathouse is out. Those, I would say, out of all of the quote-unquote surprises or whatever, those are the only 2 guys that even had a chance of playing. Noah Burnett, Jaden Greathouse. The rest of the guys have been out for an extended period of time, and we don't know when they're going to come back, what that looks like, and all of those things. And so those are the only 2 guys, and so that means the rest of the questionable list from earlier in the week is available and ready to roll. So we'll see how it goes. Let us jump into some of these quotes from Marcus Freeman. And he touched on, like I said, a bunch of different topics in this week's press conference. The first one we're going to talk about is job interest, because it seems like whenever a high-profile job comes available, we hear Marcus Freeman's name. So I will just kind of set this up and then I will play the bite and we'll kind of go from there. So Marcus Freeman's name comes up with virtually every big job that comes open. The latest was the New York Giants this week. He was asked how he handles it with his team, if he brings it up with them or if he waits for them to ask about it. So this is what Marcus Freeman had to say about job interest. Here we go.
I feel like it's necessary. I do. A lot of times in things I say to the team, it may come out in terms of a great example is what's the noise you're putting in your head. Just because the noise in somebody else's head is one thing doesn't mean it has to be your noise. And so, as I told him, I'm sure I've said before, like just because somebody else might be saying my name's up for whatever job or being considered, that isn't the noise that I'm gonna put in my head, or that is my noise. And so I can address it directly, indirectly, But if I'm going to spend time talking about something like that, I got to make sure it's in a way that it's beneficial for the players, right? Your time in front of the players is so limited. And so if I can use it as an example, I will. But I also, more than anything, want to make sure I can give them some type of message to make sure that they're doing something positive for themselves.
So, Jesse, what do you think about his decision to sometimes bring it up, sometimes not bring it up, how he's handling that whole situation?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing that you can do as a head coach is be transparent. And I also believe that's, a big reason why Marcus Freeman has such a good connection with a lot of his players and his players trust him is the transparency that he has. So if the situation calls and it's beneficial, like he talked about, then yeah, it makes sense. But I think the most important thing he said was talking about, the noise, controlling my noise and what I'm actually focused on and what, you just kind of let go essentially and just kind of be noise in the background. So again, I think it all comes down to transparency, which I respect a lot about Marcus Freeman.
Yeah, I don't think he, tries to keep things from his team. I mean, if I'm sure if somebody on the team asked him about, the Giants job, for example, or, whatever open job, LSU, Penn State, he's going to be honest with them, right? And it just feels to me like he's not interested in another job right now. But what is he supposed to say? Well, I am pretty interested in that New York Giants job, but I guess I'll worry about Pitt for this week while my agent goes ahead and negotiates that job. This is what he's supposed to say, right? When it comes to, his name being out there and, all of those things. But I do like how transparent he is. I mean, he's being honest about the fact that, like, look, if I have to bring it up, I'll bring it up. It's out there. Guys are seeing it. And if there's a question about it, I'm going to talk about it. He's not just putting up a wall. He's like, why would I ever think about talking about something like that?
Yeah, he's not hiding from anything.
Right, exactly. And I think Marcus Freeman has done a good job over the years of being very transparent, not only with his team, but also with the media. And when he's asked questions, he generally speaks from the heart. Sometimes it got him in a little bit of trouble. He'd be a little too open. He's got a little bit better about that. But I do feel like he's done a very good job of being honest when asked questions about his future or a lot of different topics. All right. So he was asked about CJ Carr. Shocker, right? So CJ Carr will make his 10th career start this Saturday against Pitt. Freeman was asked when he first saw the team gaining confidence in the redshirt freshman quarterback. Here's what he had to say.
Yeah, there's not one time. There's not like one moment. It's accumulation of moments where you see the confidence, right? I mean, it's built. Like it's built and it's built over time. And so I wish I could tell you there was just one moment that I knew they were confident quarterback, but it's built through fall camp. It's built through success during the season, and it's ultra high, obviously, right now. And I think the same goes with their quarterback. It's built over these 5 games that he's made the decisions and made the plays that he's made, and that's how confidence is built in others.
All right, Jess. So, was there a moment for you when you became confident that CJ Carr was the right guy for this job, or has it been just kind of a progression throughout the season for you?
That's a really tough question, Vince. I think I know this thing's on. No, I think it's a little bit of both. Going through the season, you want to see your quarterback progress, especially someone young like CJ Carr, and get better week by week, kind of pick up more tools in the toolbox. But the main thing is, I guess the moment I knew that CJ Carr was good was honestly those first 2 games of the season when you didn't really see him make a whole lot of mental mistakes or, forced errors in the big time situations. He actually got better when, there was more stress or more needed out of the offense, because those games early on, really, as we all know, the defense let them down. So I knew early on, because of the way he was handling those high leverage games in very high stress critical situations. because he has all the skills to be really great, but did he have the mental side of it and then also the ability to read defenses?
No, I agree. And I would say that, it started to become apparent, watching him in practice even last year as a true freshman, when he got here early and he was here for some bowl game preparation as well. And then obviously into the spring and into the fall. And, he's been here for a while. And I think watching CJ Carr grow and mature and the way he goes about his business, even from a spectator standpoint of the media, right? And we don't get a ton of, access, but the access that we do get, just watching the ball come out of his hand, watching the way that he interacted with his teammates, watching, how he would adjust and adapt after one play, whether it was positive or negative or whatever. I feel like that trust has been built since the day he stepped on campus. And I know Stymie is being a little sarcastic here. He says when he arrived on campus, to a point, I agree with that. I think that he has been earning the respect and earning the confidence in his teammates since he got here. And it just has now come to fruition on the actual field itself, this year and how things are going and all of those different things. I mean, we've seen him make some pretty impressive throws. We've seen him, work the pocket. We've seen him do all the things that he needs to do. He just needs to be a little bit more consistent at times. And, and that's not surprising considering it's his first year starting and he's a redshirt freshman. So I think the confidence is absolutely there from his teammates. And I think it grows every week. All right, let's see here. The next topic that came up was surprise, the kicking game. So after shaky place kicking against Boston College 2 weeks ago, Eric Schmidt won the kicking job last week and nailed all 7 of his extra points against Navy. Freeman talked about the changes they made to Schmidt's routine that led up to that. And here is what he had to say.
I think there's some different things we did in the Tuesday practice. Usually on Tuesdays, you have a field goal period where you kick just for that 5-minute period. We were intentional about kind of spreading some kicks throughout practice to simulate like a game. You go out there with the field goal unit, you kick one kick and make it or miss it. You got to move on. And we let him have some input in terms of the script, where he would be kicking the ball from. A lot of work, mental work with Joey Raymaker and Marty Biaggi. Again, just trying to get his mind focused on the right things to reinforce habits that we want him to be able to have when it matters in a game. And so, we got to continue to do those things and continue to enhance and ultimately just have confidence it's producing a better result.
All right, Jess. So obviously things were rough last, 2 weeks ago, week and a half ago. And then things looked pretty darn good against Navy. So are they doing the right things in practice? Are they overdoing it? Are they underdoing it? What are your thoughts?
No, I love what Marcus Freeman said and what they're doing with him in practice. They're getting him ready, Vince. They know that they need him in a high leverage situation at some point in this season, and they're getting him ready. It's not enough just to, have the periods that he's talking about, just kicking, no one coming, no pressure bearing down on you, no getting on and off the field, executing as a unit. And so stimulating these situations, yes, he might know about them, but I'm sure that they're working all kinds of – he knows where they're going to kick it. Sorry. They don't know the different kind of wrenches that they're going to throw, getting them on and off the field, when they're letting them get on the field, when it's like a fire, you got like 10, 15 seconds to try to get out there. So simulating these type of kicks is huge because we saw Notre Dame beat Penn State last season to go to the national championship on a crunch time field goal to win it, right? Like that's what you're trying to stimulate as best as possible at practice. So I love what they're doing with them. And I hope that we see the results in these last, however many games, definitely 3 games, and then the more that's going to come beyond that.
I would say real simply for me, they are giving him ownership of the job. And I like that. They're putting all their chips they're pushing them all in on Eric Schmidt. And I hope that continues the rest of the season, regardless of how he operates and how he does, in a game. But they are making this his job, right? It's not a competition anymore. It is, okay, Eric, you're the guy. Where are we kicking from in practice? What are you comfortable with? Let's do this. I know Marty Biaggi is really big into the mental side of the game. Even during his kicking camps that he would hold for high school kids, he would have them go through, all these kind of mental checks and have them practice running out on the field and then kicking a ball, even though there was no ball to kick. And then you would do that like 5 to 10 times. Like that's a period where you just jog on from the sideline, line your kick up, and then just go through the motions, So he's big into the mental side of things. And so they're all in on Eric Schmidt, which I appreciate. That's exactly what we were asking them to do. Like pick a guy.
He's the top
and
kicker,
roll.
and he's young. You might as well just bite the bullet and get this thing going.
Well, for a fact he's going to be on the roster next year.
Right.
So let's see what you got. Let's see what you got in Eric Schmidt. He was ranked high. He's got a big leg. Let's see what he can do. And I'm not saying throw Noah Burnett to the side. You still got to keep him engaged and, just in case something happens. But at the same time, they've got one guy now. Like, this is your guy. We are backing you 100%. This is what we're going to do. And I think that's a great idea. Yeah. I think that's a great idea. All right. Well, I'll tell you what. Let's take a break. We'll have more when we come back on Budweiser's Weekday Sports Beat with IrishBreakdown.com. We got a few more cuts to get to from Marcus Freeman's press conference, and then the long-awaited and always exciting whiteboard is right around the corner.
You might go to sleep. You probably know everything that's going to be said.
Listen, I appreciate just getting the old dry erase marker, getting up on the whiteboard and just start drawing some X's and O's and some arrows and some crack blocks and all of those things. So I'm ready, man. I'm excited to talk some ball here. Okay.
All right.
So
That's the energy I need.
I'm ready, baby. I'm ready. So on the other side of the break, we'll get some more quotes from Marcus Freeman, then we'll get to some whiteboard. So we will be right back. Welcome back to Budweiser's weekday sports beat along with irishbreakdown.com. I'm Vince, that's Jesse, and we are meandering through Marcus Freeman's weekday Zoom press conference that he does every Thursday, and we are going through some quotes. And Marcus Freeman, actually, Jesse, had a very eventful day yesterday morning. And for those of you who are not keen to the other sports besides football, yesterday was National Signing Day, and Marcus Freeman has an eye on National Signing Day for a very, very good reason. So Wednesday was National Signing Day, and Freeman's oldest son, Vinny, signed his national letter of intent at Penn High School to wrestle for Cornell. Freeman talked about experiencing signing day for the first time as a parent rather than as a coach. So here's what he had to say about that with the tables turned.
As far as signing day, yeah, it was, again, it's different, right? Obviously, my first time being at a signing day ceremony for one of my children, and it was a proud moment. It's his moment. You know, sometimes you wish you could be disguised because I want to make sure the focus is on him because of what he accomplished and what he's given his future. But it's a proud moment as a parent because, you know, a lot of hard work goes into that moment.
All right, Jesse. So thoughts on what Marcus Freeman had to say there, and then I've got a follow-up for you.
Oh, 2 questions in one.
Yeah, buddy.
No, I think that it is such a cool moment for Marcus Freeman to know what it takes to come to that moment. He did it, you know, as someone who played college football and obviously in the NFL briefly as well. He's around it with recruits that are coming to his team, choosing to come to Notre Dame, and then to finally see his son do it just has to be, like he said, a very proud moment. So I think the biggest thing that he said there was just trying to find a way to make it all about him because he still is Marcus Freeman at the end of the day. So you don't want people taking that away from him in his moment. So I just think it's really awesome at the end of the day, though, and that he gets that opportunity to really appreciate it.
I would say the only thing to me that not took away from the moment, but the only thing I realized when I looked at some pictures and I saw him in the hallways and stuff like that over at Penn was that he had a sweet jacket on. Like that Cornell wrestling jacket was sweet.
Vince said, "Where can I get one of those?"
Man, I tell you what, I'll rep Cornell wrestling because that was a good looking jacket. But I will say this, and I know that he tries to be as incognito as possible when he's there, you know, watching Vinny do his thing and all of that. But for the most part, people at Penn are used to seeing him over there, and they leave him alone. I mean, they don't.
It's a common face at this point.
Exactly correct, and they know that he's there as a dad, and believe me, we've had to tell people, hey, he's here as a dad. Leave him alone. you know what I mean? But I'm glad that he got to experience that. Do you remember your signing day when you went off to college?
Yeah, I mean, it was at Adams High School. We were like kind of not in the principal's office, but kind of in some sort of administrative office. The news stopped by for a little bit, and me and some of my closest friends put pen to paper. So just like he was saying, it was in that moment, it's really gratifying for, you know, the years of hard work that like so many practices and workouts and doing stuff on your own. And then to be there with, you know, your closest friends and your family supporting you is just, it's a lot of fun.
I can imagine. I never got to do it as a student athlete, but I got to experience it last year with my own son. And to, you know, kind of echo what Marcus Freeman had to say, it's a very proud moment as a parent because, you know, you of all people know how much work that your kid put into it. And I'm sure your dad could speak to that when then he's back on the show. But you know how much effort they put into it and how much time and hard work, you know, both in the classroom and then either on the field or, you know, in the wrestling room or whatever the case may be. I mean, it's real, and it is a culminating moment, man. It can get emotional, but you're just super proud of your kid, and I'm sure your dad was super proud of you when you did it, and then it's just fun to watch their journey once they get to school. as well. And going to Cornell for Vinny, I mean, that's legit. Like, that's Ivy League, man. Like, he's going to get one
legit
hell of
on
an
both
education.
ends. He's going to be challenged in the wrestling room and then also in the classroom as well.
Yeah, Cornell's a good wrestling school too. I mean, they're not just Ivy League. Like, they're a good wrestling school, and obviously they're a really, really good academic school. So congratulations to Vinny Freeman, and I look forward to watching him play a few more football games, hopefully, as Penn takes on Fort Wayne Carroll. Boo. This Friday at Penn High School at 7:30 for the regional championship. Be there or be square. I will be there because I get paid to be there. But I will.
Why else would Ben's be somewhere?
I mean, I will also be rooting on the Penn Kingsmen, since that is where my son played as well. But big game, having the Carroll Chargers come on up to Freed Field. So that should be a fun one. And only 2 stops away from state. So Penn hasn't been in this position in a while.
Vince, the cool thing about wrestling, in my opinion, is yes, you go to a college and play, as a team.
Sure.
But you still get to wrestle individually and be like a national championship individually. So I'm really curious to see, kind of where Vinny's, not that I'm like super into it or like following anything, but like just seeing where he goes, seeing if he can maybe end up and potentially wrestle for a national championship.
Absolutely. I mean, he's been a state placer, I think, 2 out of the last 3 years. His sophomore year, he went, but I don't think he placed at state. But he placed as a freshman. He placed as a junior. And so I'm sure he's got some unfinished business to take care of as a senior. And I will also say this. The state wrestling tournament down at Gainbridge, down in Indianapolis, I went for the first time last year. That is a spectacle. Like, that should be, if you are a fan of high school sports, just in general, that should be a bucket list item.
You and my dad should go. My dad loves to watch wrestling.
It was a lot of fun. My son and I went. He had a few friends that qualified for the state tournament. So he and I went down and we stayed all day long on the second day and watched the finals. And I mean, it was a blast. Like, it was really, really, really cool to watch those guys compete. And there are some dudes that wrestle at the state championship. Let me tell you, there are some dudes. So definitely a bucket list item. I'm glad I was able to check that off, but I highly recommend anybody out there that is a high school sports fan, you got to get down to Gainbridge for the wrestling state championship. It's awesome. So, all right, we got one more quote to get to from Marcus Freeman's press conference. Freshman linebacker Madden Faramo has had his most productive game of the season against Navy last week. Freeman discussed what got him on the field and what his future could potentially hold.
He did a good job in practice. We kind of paired him up with King. You had Snead and Drake together, and then King and Madden in practice. In the game, we did at times too. But again, he showed in practice that he could get his job done. And we knew it would take a little bit of time because he hasn't faced it in college. But he really caught up to the speed of the game pretty fast, and he did a really good job. And so, what does that mean for the future? The next time we play Navy, hopefully, he'll have experience on what the speed is going to be and his expectations. But Matt is going to do great things for this program in the future and currently.
So your thoughts on Madden and how he played not only on Saturday, but kind of how he's, maturing his way through his freshman year?
Yeah, I think it's super impressive that he, as a freshman, is already out there on the field making an impact. And most importantly, someone like Marcus Freeman said, understands the game, plays to the speed of the game, and then most importantly, that the coaches can trust to be out there to make the play that they're supposed to. So doing all of that in your freshman year is just super impressive. And then just also speaks to the talent and athleticism that Madden has. And I think that's why Marcus Freeman was already kind of alluding to the future and how he's going to have even, a bigger impact and how good he is going to be. But I think earlier this week in the show, I talked about, as the linebacker playing against the triple option. Yes, the triple option can be complex, but for a young linebacker, it's a good opportunity because a lot of times, Vince, you're just downhill fast. You're making plays with just overall athleticism not allowing them to capture the edge. So someone that has that, downhill ability, but also the athleticism to run sideline to sideline and not have to worry so much about pass coverage. I think Madden was perfect for the situation. So you get him that experience, and now for the rest of the season, even potentially, in a playoff run, you might see him even more.
Yeah, I think it was nice to see both Madden and Kingston on the field at the same time. A little nod to the future potentially and what that could look like. So that's
Real
kind of
good.
exciting. Not that I'm ready to give up on Drake Bowen because he is a stud as well. So, again, a dearth of talent in the linebacker room for Notre Dame. There's no doubt about that. And so just being able to rotate guys like that and have zero drop off from an athleticism standpoint is pretty good place to be if you're Notre Dame. And so I was very curious to see how they were going to play against the option with Chris Ash, the first time with him kind of getting after it as the Notre Dame defensive coordinator. But I think watching what they were able to do, I mean, when you stick these kind of athletes inside your scheme against that kind of an offense, good things happen. And they happen most of the day, for sure. And Madden was a big part of that. There's no doubt about it. All right, let's take a quick break. And when we come back, it's time for Jesse Stiers to shine. It is whiteboard time. I'm excited about it. I haven't seen a whiteboard in a really, really long time. And so I'm pumped. I'm fired up. And so we're going to check that out on the other side of the break. So when we come back on Budweiser's Weekday Sports Beat along with IrishBreakdown.com, it will be Jesse Stiers and the famous whiteboard. Stick around. Welcome back to Budweiser's Weekday Sports Beat, along with IrishBreakdown.com. I'm Vince, that's Jesse, and we are in for Sean Stiers, who is currently, I believe he's currently on a bus to Detroit for the Notre Dame women's basketball team because they've got a game coming up this weekend. And do you remember off the top of your head who they got, Jess?
I believe they're playing Michigan this weekend in Detroit.
Michigan? Oh, well, Okay. Well, we know who we're rooting for then, if that's the case. And we got Hannah Hidalgo coming off of a record-setting night last night, scoring the most points in any women's basketball game. I believe she had 43, something like that. I think the previous record was 41. So she's just busy setting records and doing her thing. And
She had
you are
16 steals.
Yeah. She was one rebound away from a triple-double, I believe.
With steals.
Yeah, with steals as one of the triple. Yeah, exactly.
Craziness.
Yes. And so, yeah, you are correct. They are playing Michigan in Detroit, 4:00 Eastern time in what is called the 2025 Shamrock Classic, which is interesting since they're going to be a lot closer to Michigan, the University of Michigan, than they are to the University of Notre Dame. But it's a Shamrock Classic, and it's just another opportunity.
The venue.
Yeah, just another opportunity for Notre Dame to put a whooping on Michigan. So it doesn't matter the sport.
Vince is calling his shot.
It's all good. Well, I don't want to waste any more time. And if we have to bleed over,
quite the preamble here. By the way,
I set you up, so I hopefully you come you come to play here. But if we have to go over to the second hour, we can do that. Just FYI, so you are not hamstrung by time, is what I want to tell you. But I am just I'm going to pick this thing up and I'm going to hand it off to you. Jesse Stiers, give us your whiteboard presentation, sir.
Yeah. So go ahead if you don't mind promoting this shared screen, so all of our video listeners can kind of see some stuff here. Radio listeners, I appreciate you, and I'll do my best here to explain everything. So, the biggest thing to understand and Pat Narduzzi's defense is he wants to stop the run. And so how do you do that defensively, schematically? You bring your safeties down, really, and they're playing within 9 to 10 yards of the line of scrimmage. So you're creating almost a 9-man box at the end of the day. You are really heavy set on, stopping the run. And then in coverage, it looks like you're playing man-to-man because these safeties are playing so close to the line of scrimmage. But really, it's man-to-man, but also it can be, cover 4 or quarters at the same time. So a common kind of, offensive personnel for Notre Dame is 11 personnel. So you have 1 tight end, 1 running back, and they usually kind of split out into doubles. So meaning you have 2 on each side, either, 2 wide receivers on one side, and then a tight end and a wide receiver on the other side. Obviously sometimes they'll run trips, bunch, all that kind of different stuff. But for the sake of what I've got going on, you have 2 by 2. So you have 2 wide receivers split out to the right. You have a tight end and a wide receiver split out to the left. And obviously you have CJ Carr in shotgun, because when do they ever go under center, Vince? Never. So they're in shotgun out, and then you have Jeremiah Love in the backfield as well. So they run, a 4-2-5, meaning 4 down linemen, 2 true linebackers inside the middle of the box. And then the main kind of player in this defense is this overhang player who's usually some sort of hybrid of, linebacker, safety, or maybe just a straight up safety. And then you have your corners on the outside, and then your strong, and then your free safety. For this formation, you're going to have your strong safety over top of your tight end, probably playing, about 7 yards from the line of scrimmage. And then your free safety is going to be split out to the other side over top of the 2 wide receivers. So the main thing in this offense for Notre Dame, this defense is, identifying what the weaknesses are. But before I get there, it's kind of important to talk schematically what CJ Carr has to read pre-snap when Pittsburgh presents this defense. So again, it looks like man coverage, but it's only man coverage depending on what the number 2 wide receiver runs. So the wide receiver closest to the line of scrimmage. So in this case, it's your tight end, and then one of those split out twin wide receivers. So if let's say Eli Raridan lines up in this situation and runs some sort of, flat route or drag route underneath, meaning probably about 5-6 yards, but it's really underneath the safety level, then that inside linebacker is going to be responsible for those drag routes or those underneath routes. And then that safety over top can now double the wide receiver, outside wide receiver, either running, maybe some sort of dig route, maybe some vertical route or post route. That frees up the safety, right? But if Eli Raridan doesn't stay underneath and starts pressing that's when that safety over top is now actually going to play man coverage or, their quarter of the field, essentially. So it looks like man coverage. It's really quarters coverage, depending on what routes you run. And then the question becomes, Vince, how do you take advantage of this defense? And how do you not really abandon the run completely when it feels like, they have everyone inside the box?
I completely agree with you. I am interested to hear if you've got an answer for that. How do you not abandon the run when you're looking at a loaded box? Because Notre Dame has looked at a loaded box for the last 2 weeks. Whether it was Boston College or whether it was Navy, there was a lot of hats in the box, and there was a lot of times that the Notre Dame offense was going up against numbers that they don't like in the run game, but it was also allowing for a lot of one-on-one coverage in the secondary.
Right. So that's the thing, Vince, is first and foremost, you can't be afraid if you're Notre Dame to trust CJ Carr and continue to throw the ball. Like they're going to come out in this base defense. This is what they're going to present to you at the beginning of the game. They're only going to change if CJ Carr makes them change. He has to be able to dissect what's going on pre-snap to post-snap, make the right reads, and really gain ground in the passing game. But at the same time, you can't abandon the run game. You have to get creative and try to figure out, how you're going to attack the run game. So, first and foremost in the passing plays, obviously you can get into screens, some play action, and then, you want to use a lot of really RPO because you want to put this overhang. Whoops, I'm not drawing anymore. Give me 1 second. You want to put this overhang player, the safety, the hybrid, I think they call it the shark in their defense. You want to get him stepping downhill, trying to commit to run, but then also taking advantage with them with this number 2 wide receiver. So I think a lot of what you'll see, I think a big factor in this game is going to be Eli Raritan, because I think you can run a lot of different routes that are going to put these safeties and corners in a bind, and potentially, you're kind of throwing it back at them like, oh, we don't know what coverage you think we don't know what coverage you're going to run. How about you don't know what coverage you need to play based on some of the route concepts that we're going to put at you? So I think Eli Raritan is really good at some of those downfield passes. So I wouldn't be surprised if you see, both of these wide receivers kind of press vertical, and then Raritan kind of work, an outside post towards the sideline. That's a nice ball that we see CJ Carr really throw well, is that kind of, fade or post route by the numbers, kind of coming over the shoulder. So I see a lot of that potentially happening. And then as well, I think what you can do is in the RPO game, again, you start kind of pressing this outside guy, this outside linebacker / safety, and really put him in a bind where, okay, we press the run, maybe, we fake it, and now we get Jeremiah Love out in the flat, while also, working some of these outside wide receivers vertical, clearing out space and allowing, Jeremiah Love potentially to get one of those favorable matchups.
So do you think that this will be a game where Jeremiah Love is going to be used in the pass game efficiently, similar to the way he was used against Navy?
I do. I think this is a game where, Jeremiah Love racks up kind of overall a certain amount of touches per game, right? Like 20, let's say like 24, 23, kind of in that ballpark. Sometimes you see it's just a lot of runs. We've seen a lot of carries. Sometimes you see that he mixes in, 6, 7 catches. I think this game is a game where you'll see him more catches to balance out his touches at the end of the game. And then I think also when you're thinking about running against this type of defense, you don't want to run in the interior. I think the important part is you have to kind of attack that outside perimeter, kind of what I like to call like the veer concept, kind of, like off tackle. Essentially, you're running right at the tackles, but I think you have to really press the edges, especially the tight end side, where you almost have, let me undo some stuff here. You can create, a man-on-man situation here or an outside run where you're putting this will linebacker in a really tough situation. Because let's say, again, this is the side with the wide receiver, the tight end, and now the running back is going to join that side. So you have your outside wide receiver getting vertical. You have Eli Raritan getting vertical as well. So now you've taken the corner out of the game. You've taken the safety out of the game because they have to take them essentially man on man. And then if you leak Jeremiah Love out into that flat, we're now talking about one of the most explosive, elusive players in college football, man on man with a linebacker, Vince. Who are you taking in that situation?
Number 4 all day long.
Right. And so that's where you're pressing that edge at that backside, weak side linebacker. You're making him make the decision too of, do I commit to the run? And then if you get vertical, you allow Jeremiah Love to sneak out, and he has to take him now man on man. And I think that's when you see him pass to Jeremiah Love as well. So I think there's a lot of options. I think Jeremiah Love, not a lot of options. You have to take advantage of certain matchups, right? You have to understand getting guys into space against someone like a will linebacker when you have Jeremiah Love.
So speaking of matchups, Brian has been begging for this to be the case, all season. But is this a game where you think that they should be pressing the outside in the run game? Like just some simple toss sweeps, some jet motion, some things of that nature to get outside the tackle box a little bit more. What do you think?
Yes. So that's a really good point, Vince, because what you can do is not only can you get Jeremiah Love, in the run game, but you have really good slot wide receivers like Jordan Faison, who you can give kind of this running start and jet motion. And then because Pittsburgh has committed so many players to in the box and really kind of within the hashes, if you hit the perimeter, a lot of times you have maybe one or two guys to beat, one tackle to beat, and you could, have an explosive play, 10, 15, 20-yard run. So you want to try to capture the edge in a defense like this. So yes, you would like to see a lot of quick hitting, maybe a jet sweep, a quick toss to the outside. And you have the athletes to do it. You have Jeremiah Love, you have Jordan Faison. And then another thing that is really beneficial against a defense like this, Vince, is the counter game as well. Getting these guys to bite down in the box, get everyone flowing, and then hit that backside. Because again, it presents itself as man defense. So counters work when you have over pursuit, and then you essentially have one guy to be on the backside help. So I would see counters as something that would be, really beneficial as well.
So they will run right up against this box. There's no doubt about that, but a little misdirection never hurt anybody either, because Pitt is going to be slanting and moving and doing some different things. And if you can catch them in a twist, in a slant, in a, whatever, in some movement, then you're off to the races as well. I mean, and you get either Jadarian Price or Jeremiah Love out in space. I will take them against any defensive back in space all day long. So this could be a fun game. This could definitely be a fun game for sure. Anything else you want to add to the whiteboard? Because we can do it on the other side of the break, or are we good?
I think we're good. I hit my time mark for once. Usually I'm long-winded. I feel like I actually did a good job bringing the facts, being concise, giving the people the hard facts, and we stayed on schedule.
I love it. I absolutely love it. All right, let me grab that off of here, and it's perfect. We got right to the top of the hour, Jess. Thank you very much. We're going to potentially revisit some of those concepts maybe when we come back on the other side, but we're going to take a quick break. We'll have more when we come back on Budweiser's Weekday Sports Beat with IrishBreakdown.com. It'll be the top of the hour, and we all know what that means, Jesse. It means a little bit of rapid fire. And so we will have that on the other side of the break.
Can't wait.
Welcome back, everyone, to Budweiser's Weekday Sports Beat, along with IrishBreakdown.com. I am Vince D'Addario. That Diet Coke sipping young lad is Jesse Stiers, and we are in for Sean. Yes, you are a young lad. You're a young lad, sir. We are in for Sean Stiers, and because he is on a bus all the way up to Detroit City for Notre Dame's game against Michigan on Saturday at 4:00. So you definitely going to want to tune into that because the Notre Dame game, the football game, will be over by then because it's a noon start. And so you can watch a little Notre Dame football, then you watch a little Notre Dame basketball. And
the good old doubleheader.
That's right, man. Get all kinds of W's on Saturday. And none are more pleasing than when you can get one against Pitt and Coach Narduzzi. And then also, of course, against the University of Michigan. Any win against them is a good win. And so, of course, you can find that game Saturday, 12 o'clock. You'll hear the radio call right here on Sports Radio WSBT. The Game Day Show is live from 8 to 11 Eastern Time. Join Tim Grau, Jim Irizarry, Eric Hansen, and Tyler Horka before the Irish take on the Panthers this Saturday. This week's guests on the Game Day Show are Terry Hanratty and Trevor Ruland. So make sure you tune in for the Game Day Show this Saturday from 8 to 11 Eastern Time on Sports Radio WSBT and the Sports Radio WSBT app. The guys always bring the heat prior to the game, so you definitely want to check that out. And then really there's no call that is better than the radio call of Notre Dame football. So just throwing that out there. If I hear a lot of complaints about the TV announcers. No such thing when you listen to Notre Dame radio, just FYI. So, all right, Jesse, it is the top of the hour. We have crested past the 6 o'clock mark. So what does that mean?
It's rapid fire time, baby.
That's what I'm talking about. Way to hit your cue, sir. All right. So let's jump right into tonight's rapid fire. We got a few questions in here. And then, if there's some questions in the chat, we might star those up and take a look at those at some point as well. All right. So our first question of the night, Jesse, the second round of the CFP rankings have come out.
Oh,
is it fair or foul that a 2-loss Notre Dame team is ranked ahead of a 1-loss BYU team?
Vince, why did you waste all that breath asking me this silly question? This is 100% foul. This is foul. And I'll give you some reasoning. I know it's hard because, yes, we are biased and all those things, but I will present you short and concise facts. Let's take a look at BYU schedule, who they've won against, who they've lost against, and kind of, work our way there. Portland State stinks. Stanford stinks. Eastern Carolina stinks. Colorado stinks. West Virginia, basically, I would say stinks. Maybe you could call average. Arizona stinks. Utah, that's a pretty, average, maybe above average team that they won 24-21. They beat Iowa State. Iowa State's banged up this year. A lot of injuries, not really their typical kind of Iowa State self. And then Texas Tech, yes, that's your first loss, but it was never even close. It was a beatdown the entire game. So you have really no quality wins, in my opinion. Your best win is Utah. You got hammered in the only game that actually matters against Texas Tech. Like, you watch that game, they had no shot at winning at any point. It was dominance by Texas Tech. And, by the way, you play in the Big 12. So Notre Dame, yes, they have 2 losses. One is to the first-place team in the SEC. One is to a Miami team with a lot of talent. First game of the season. A very up-and-down kind of Miami team of recent. But I think this also has to factor into it as well. This is Notre Dame. They played in a national championship last year. You have one of the best players in the country, a Heisman player, and Jeremiah Love. They have answered a lot of questions since those first, losses to start their season. If Notre Dame played those games right now today, neutral field, they would be at least a favorite against Miami and probably pretty much a toss-up against Texas A&M. So what are we talking about here?
I dig it. Let me let me ask you the same, because I agree with you. I mean, Notre Dame should absolutely be ranked ahead of BYU, especially with the way that they basically no-showed against Texas Tech, their biggest game of the year. I mean, it was a 7-8 matchup, number 7 versus number 8, and number 7 didn't show up, and it was not good for BYU, and all of the chirping we heard from BYU people last week. So, not a good situation for the Cougars. Let's take out BYU and replace it with Miami, because you know what? I'm going to take that back, because we've got a rapid fire question here coming up in a little bit about the old Hurricanes, and so I don't want to spoil the show.
You don't want to soil that one.
I don't. I forgot we had that question here down the line, so I'm going to take a pause on the Miami part.
Hot route here.
Yeah, hot route. Okay. So Michigan State had to vacate wins from 2022 to 2024 due to 3 ineligible players. Will we see MSU return to glory within the next 20 years? That's a big runway. 20 years. Are we going to see a better Michigan State?
I don't know, Vince. This is tough because Michigan State, when I was growing up or early on, when they were playing Notre Dame, those are good Michigan State teams.
I know.
And even kind of, I believe going into high school up to like 2014, 15, 16 is kind of when they started that downward slide where, they were playing in conference championship games. They were going to New Year's Six bowl games. And now it's just one bad decision that has put them in this huge rut, because what is appealing about going to Michigan State right now? Like they can't figure it out administration wise. They can't figure it out head coach wise. Now you have all these wins vacated. Like why would anyone as a recruit look to that program and say, yes, that's where I can go to grow, to, go on to the NFL, that sort of thing, to develop. I think they're going to trend downward to being one of the middle to not bottom tier Big Ten schools. And it's really sad because they have such a great opportunity, like we've seen in the past, to be a really good program. I will say, though, kind of my hot take on this situation, I think Brian Kelly would be a perfect fit for the state that Michigan State is in right now.
Well, obviously, Jonathan Smith is the head coach. He's currently the head coach, so there's no opening there. But we kind of touched on this yesterday, though, about what a good landing spot for old BK might be. And I think a Midwest team is where he should set his sights. And, right now there's no opening for Michigan State. There's no opening at Wisconsin, that kind of a deal. And that's okay, because I don't know that Brian Kelly is ready to jump right back in with both feet. I think he is going to take a year off. I mean, we'll see how it goes. And at that point, you might have both of these jobs open.
Why would Jonathan Smith want to stay there as a head coach? That's, head coaches also have aspirations. They want to, these players want to go on to the NFL. Like these coaches want to take bigger jobs and do better in their kind of, I guess, path as well. So I don't see a reason why Jonathan Smith might not just leave Michigan State within the next couple of years. And then, like we were talking about yesterday, here's Brian Kelly take maybe a little bit time off for things to kind of, resolve between all these lawsuits that are coming out and his personal image and all these things. So I don't know. I think Brian Kelly does well in the Midwest, and I think he does well in a big program, but not like the blue blood type programs, right? Like places that he can turn around and fix at some point and kind of rebuild the program, because that's what he's done well. Like Notre Dame was in a hole when he got here, and he did get Notre Dame out of a hole at a big time program. 100%. So sometimes, or especially early on, Vince, it's about winning games. You can tolerate, with some of the stuff that Brian Kelly does early on because he's winning you games. He is digging you out of that hole.
Well, and you got to remember also, where did Brian Kelly have his success? State of Michigan, right?
Yeah,
Grand Valley State won a couple national titles. He had success at Central Michigan, I do believe, was his next stop. And so, those two schools are obviously in the state of Michigan. Those are two schools that, he had to recruit to, so he can recruit the state of Michigan. He can recruit the Midwest,
Be
and
like going back to his roots.
it really would be. Now, the biggest question would be, does he have how do I want to say it? Does he have the work ethic that he had when he was younger to be, get out there on the recruiting trail, turn those 3 stars, into guys that are going to win some games in the Big Ten, all of those kinds of things. Does he have what he had back when he was a GA and back when he was a defensive coordinator, and then became a head coach in his 20s at Grand Valley? I think that's going to be the biggest question moving forward, is if he takes one of these jobs, and one of these jobs is going to be a major rebuild, whether it's Wisconsin, whether it's Michigan State, it's going to be a major rebuild. You got to have some energy. You got to have some work ethic to get those teams into the perennial 8, 9, 10 win season, landscape. And then you can kind of maybe take your foot off the gas a little bit. But if you want to keep them there, you got to kind of keep going after it. So, and I don't know the answer to this. What does Brian Kelly want with his next job? Or does he just want to, sit back, get a studio analyst job, and just chill with all them dollar bills in his bank account?
No more purple face.
There's nothing to get upset about when you're breaking down everybody else's games, So I'm very curious to see kind of what his next step is. But if he's going to jump back in, I just feel like the Midwest is where he needs to come back to.
Yeah, 100% agree. And that's why places like Penn State, Michigan State, maybe there's rumblings about, how long is Fickle going to last up at Wisconsin. Those are all, I think, really good landing places for someone like Brian Kelly, if that's what he wants to do after making it rain here, Vince. We're talking about lifetime money. If I got that money, you wouldn't see me anymore. I'll tell you that.
This would be just dead air right now if it was both of us. So there's that. So yeah, I think will Michigan State get back on top in the next 20 years? And by on top, I just mean getting back to who Michigan State was. You know what I mean? Like 9, 10 wins every year, and then you get that kind of that jump up year where you're real competitive and you're in the national championship conversation, like every 3rd or 4th year kind of a deal. And then
I would put it even further than that, like every 5 or 6.
Okay. And then you come back down to, the 9 win on average.
You're flirting with it.
Yeah, exactly.
You're playing meaningful games. You're getting everyone engaged in Michigan State football. Not only are you winning games, but you got everyone coming to games. You're selling tickets, merchandise, food, everything that comes with it, right? And I think that's the attraction. Like, winning games means making money. Universities like that. You can put up with Brian Kelly for a little bit if he's winning you those games, because that means he's making you money and he's making you relevant.
Exactly, 100%. So, we'll see. I think Michigan State will get back on top, but whoever their next coach is, they're going to have to make a hell of a hire and bring somebody in that's willing to put in the work. And I thought Jonathan Smith was going to be a good hire. I really did. I guess I was wrong because it's not really working out, and he could be looking for work here maybe at the end of this year, maybe at the end of next year. We'll have to see how that all goes down. I'll tell you what, let's take a quick break, and we will be back on Budweiser's Weekday Sportsbeat with IrishBreakdown.com. And on the other side of the break, we got a few more rapid fire questions. And then I've been starring some questions over here in the chat that I think we're going to get to in the last segment. So if you've got some questions, we'll do like an itty bitty mini mailbag kind of a deal, and we'll kind of hit on some questions that the
We'll call
folks
it
have.
chat fire. How about chat fire?
Ooh, chat fire. Ooh, I like that. So we'll hit that up in the last segment. So we will catch everybody on the other side of the break. Welcome back to Budweiser's Weekday Sports Beat, along with IrishBreakdown.com. I'm here with my buddy Jesse, and I'm Vince, and we are right in the midst of a rapid fire session here, Jesse. And we got some good questions here coming up. If you tuned in hoping to hear Sean Steyer's voice, sorry, but he is on a bus up to the Motor City, like we mentioned earlier. Notre Dame women's basketball has a game against the Michigan Wolverines on Saturday at 4:00. And so he is headed up to Detroit for that game. And it is the Shamrock Classic or something along those lines. And so we'll see what happens with that. But I would say Hannah Hidalgo's ready to roll because she's absolutely on fire, Jesse.
That's player of the year potential, Hannah Hidalgo. You know, like that's how she's playing. She's playing like she wants to win National Player of the Year. 41 points, 9 rebounds, 16 steals, 1 rebound away from the coveted. Anyone who gets a triple-double with steals or blocks, like that's like a triple-double in itself. Double-double, like super impressive.
Right.
But to do a triple-double with blocks or steals, like that is even more rare in my opinion.
No doubt. No doubt at all. All right, let's jump back into a little bit of rapid fire. How about this one that I know kind of hits you right where you can feel it? The NFL has worked with lawmakers, regulators, and sports betting partners to limit and, where possible, prohibit prop bets in the NFL. And this is all in response to some of the gambling scandals that have gone on in other sports. And so the NFL,
the NBA, the MLB.
NFL's trying to cut this off at the pass. And so they're trying to just eliminate prop bets altogether in the NFL. So Jesse, to you, that is blank.
That is just dumb, Vince. And the reason why, living in Ohio, there's certain states that don't even, I think there's certain states where you can't even maybe legally bet, but there's some states where they limit already like college player props. Ohio is one of those. I get that. They're still amateurs. I feel like more influenced, all those different things. But when we're talking about professional sports, these guys sign contracts. These guys can get, basically expelled from the league. I think as soon as you crack down on it and these things happen, I don't see it as something that's going to continue. Like, why would you throw away, your career potentially for a couple extra $1,000 when you already make millions of dollars? I think by coming down hard on this, all of these kind of sweeping investigations, I hope, and maybe I'm just being, super hopeful here, but I don't see how you can, as a professional athlete, be willing to just throw this all away because of these simple prop bets, right? I think you can limit some of these guys in the MLB got, first pitch, ball or strike. Like that's easy. You only have to do one thing. I could see taking those away. But when we're talking about full game props, I think it's stupid at the end of the day. And maybe that's just the gambler in me. But these people are professional athletes. They sign contracts and they know that they can be kicked out at any point permanently.
I think the whole thing is ridiculous. You've got, first of all, I don't understand. Either you can bet or you can't. I don't understand why they take away part of betting, like prop bets, and not all of it if you want to take it away. Like, collegiate athletes right now cannot bet on games at all. And they shouldn't, right? I mean, I have no problem with that. And there's some legislation out there that is potentially going to allow them to wager on games, obviously, that are not their own. But I still have like an issue. Like if you're not allowed to do it as a player, then don't do it. You shouldn't have to ban it from the entire state because a certain small sector of people shouldn't be doing it.
A very small sample size.
Yes, and that's my biggest issue with it. If you are a college athlete, like my son, for example, and he's getting these emails from the compliance office saying, oh, well, the legislation is this and that, and, you can't bet right now, but maybe you can, and blah, 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 blah. if you're not allowed to do it, then don't do it. It has nothing to do with the fact that you either, because he's up in Michigan, right? So whether Michigan bans betting or not, he's not going to bet because he's not allowed to bet. I just don't understand why the state has to make all these rules and take stuff away from like you and me from betting because they're afraid that the NFL players are going to bet and the coaches. Like, they shouldn't be betting anyway. It doesn't matter if the state allows it or not. I just, It doesn't make any sense to me. It's like the helmet law for people that ride motorcycles. Like, so many people got into accidents. Like, well, we better have a helmet law because we got to protect people from themselves. Like, that's basically what they're doing.
That's what, they're trying to protect people from themselves.
Correct. And if I'm riding a motorcycle, I'm going to put a helmet on, whether that it's a law or not, because I want to protect myself. If I'm a professional athlete, I'm not going to bet because I'm going to protect myself. Why do we have all these laws that are protecting people from themselves? That's what I don't understand. It makes no sense to me.
We've opened a deeper wound for Vince. This all relates back to a deeper wound for Vince.
I don't know about that.
Laws, no. I was just kidding. Laws, but the laws to protect, protect people from themselves. You're right. It's stupid.
Right. Just if you can't, like, that's called Darwinism. It's like, survival of the fittest. If you're not smart enough to wear a helmet when you go on a motorcycle, like, okay,
whatever happens, happens.
It's just kind of the way it is. So, what John Christophic says, college players would bet on college sports if they were allowed to. No, not the majority of them. They wouldn't. And those that do, they don't belong playing college sports in the first place.
Correct.
That's where I'm at. That is a very broad brush to paint over an entire group of people that says if it was legal, they would do it. Because I disagree with that completely.
Don't get Vince fired up now.
Well, might be too late for that. I don't know. We'll see. All right, let's see here. Let's go back to the list here. All right. So our buddy Joel Klatt. Everybody loves to listen to Joel Klatt to either agree with him or just be outraged with everything he says. But he did say something that I think we got to talk about. He was recently quoted as saying, quote, "I do not care what they have looked like. You have to honor direct head-to-head matchups, or what are we doing?" Unquote. Do you buy or sell that quote? Obviously, he's talking about Miami and Notre Dame.
Yeah, I mean, this is a big-time sell for me. It could be a buy for me, though. I think this becomes a buy. Like, let's say Notre Dame and Miami played each other both right now, today, and they both have one loss, and Miami gave Notre Dame their second loss. Then I would buy this because it's the last month of the season.
Sure.
It's not your first game of the season. It's not your freshman quarterback's first start, your new defensive coordinator, your banged up defense, your young defense out there playing their first game of the season, trying to get all the pieces to come together on the road at Miami, high leverage game to start the season. But if you play that game this weekend or next weekend and Miami wins, sure, yes, I would buy that because that's when Notre Dame is supposed to be playing their best football and when Miami should be playing their best football. But unfortunately for Joel Klatt, ever since those two losses, Notre Dame has been trending upward. They now have a top 20 defense. They have a top 10 offense. They have, they're so dynamic in the run and the pass game. So Notre Dame's just a better team right now. And that's okay to say, especially when those two teams played each other to literally start this season, Vince. And if you want to play this game, then why isn't Louisville ahead of Notre Dame and Miami? Because Louisville, Miami, and Notre Dame all have two losses. Louisville beat Miami. Miami beat Notre Dame. So why isn't Louisville in the playoff picture right now? You can't use that rationale. It doesn't transcend across the layers that are in college football.
I mean, based on that logic, then Florida State should be ranked ahead of Alabama.
Yeah.
Right? A 3-win Florida State team apparently should be ranked ahead of Alabama because they won in the head-to-head. And if you remember watching that game, Jesse, that was not a close game. Like, Florida State beat the snot out of Alabama.
Yeah.
And so clearly they're the better team, right? Because that's what we're supposed to be. That's what we're told.
Head-to-head should trump everything.
It trumps everything. Everything. But the reality is that game happened at the beginning of the season. the same way that Notre Dame's losses happened at the beginning of the season. And Notre Dame's losses were by a combined 4 points to 2 top-ranked teams, right? Or at least one top-ranked team and one team that is ranked. And, Miami's lost 2 out of the last 3. You can call it recency bias.
To not great teams and a team that Notre Dame also shellacked in NC State.
Exactly. I mean, absolutely shellacked. So, yeah, all arguments are not made the same, unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on how you look at it.
It's just not an apples to apples analysis. You have to weigh so many different factors when you rank teams. And that's I'm not envious of what the committee has to do because they have to make a decision and then everyone else gets to formulate an opinion and spout out about it, right? And so it's tough, but you can use a lot of different metrics. Like if we went back to the old BCS system, I guarantee Notre Dame would be ranked higher. If we went back to, using Sarkisian rankings, Notre Dame would be and they factor those things in too. So with how expanded the playoff format has gotten, and we wanted it not to be based off of all these computers, and we wanted the human aspect, that's their job. And I think they're doing the right thing by not making it this apples to apples comparison. You have to take on so many different data points when making this analysis.
And I'm actually not even going to say the head to head doesn't matter because it does matter. There's no doubt about it. It absolutely does matter. But I would say also it is a data point, and there are other data points that you have to pay attention to in order to fill a complete picture. And when you've lost 2 out of the last 3, one to a team that's not even ranked or even close to being ranked, you have to take that into account, and that matters. And so we'll see what happens, because I do also firmly believe that I believe that everything will come into place, will fall into place over the next 3 weeks. I do think
that's what I mean.
Things are going to play out.
Let the dominoes fall.
Yes.
There's so many different combinations of things that can happen.
It's fun for us to talk about it. It gives us something to talk about, obviously, but at the same time, we also understand that 3 weeks from now, we will be having a different conversation, because I do think it will work its way out.
And that's what upsets me. Maybe not even upsets me, because it's not my time and energy, but why do these people get themselves so worked up about something that's not even going to be final? Why not use all of that energy and anger when it's actually final and it can't change anymore and it's concrete, right? The bracket is set. Your team could lose. The teams in front of you could lose. Let's save that energy for when things are actually final. That last rankings come out.
Right, 100%. But it gives us something to talk about, right? Because that's what we need. Otherwise, we'd be sitting here all staring at each other, and that makes not for good radio by any stretch of the imagination. So, all right, let's get one more in before we go to break. Notre Dame wide receiver Jaden Greathouse is out for this game against Pitt. So far, he has played in 4 games this season. So it's real simple, Jesse. Over under 4.5 games that he plays this year.
Yeah, I'm going to be real honest with you. I think this answer is short, quick, and sweet. If Notre Dame wins today, I think you see him in the postseason. Not today, Saturday against Pittsburgh. If Notre Dame wins against Pittsburgh, I don't think you'd see him until the college football playoff. If Notre Dame for some reason loses to Pittsburgh, I think his season would just pretty much be shut down at that point. So I'm going to say over, because I anticipate Notre Dame being in the playoffs. I think by that time he'll be healed, and it'll be meaningful football where it makes sense for him to be on the field as a difference maker.
I was hoping to see him this week because this is a meaningful game. And all 3 games that they have left are obviously meaningful because they have to win them. I mean, that goes without saying.
But you don't need him.
Right. Correct. Yes. And they don't really need him to win the game on Saturday either. I was hoping
things better. Gives you more resources.
Yeah, exactly. I was hoping that they would have him, obviously, for this game. But he's been listed as out, so he's not going to play in this game. The next time I think that we see him will be in the college football playoff, and that's not until December 19th or December 20th, depending on which game Notre Dame rolls into. And so you're talking over a month away. So that's another 4+ weeks for him to get ready, to get healthy and get exactly to where he needs to be. And he is hurt. They just drained blood from his thigh, so he is hurt. But if he's out this week, I think he's going to be out the rest of the way. And as long as Notre Dame makes the playoff, I do think that he will play then, and he will be a huge shot in the arm for this Notre Dame offense. So I will say over, because I'm confident that Notre Dame is going to make the playoff. All right. How about we get into a break? We have one more rapid fire question, and then we will hit some comments and some questions from the chat that we've been kind of taking apart here and starring up and ready to roll for our last segment. So we'll take a break
otherwise
here.
known as chat fire.
Chat fire. We have coined a new term for the last segment of the show. So we'll take a break, and we will be right back on Budweiser's Weekday Sports Beat with IrishBreakdown.com. Welcome back to Weekday Sports Beat along with IrishBreakdown.com. I'm Vince D'Addario. That's Jesse Stiers. And as we mentioned before, Sean is on a bus to Detroit with the women's basketball program to take on Michigan at 4 o'clock Eastern. And that is the second game of a doubleheader on Saturday if you want to watch some Irish, because Notre Dame is at Pittsburgh this Saturday at 12 o'clock. And you'll hear the radio call right here on Sports Radio WSBT. The Game Day Show is live from 8 to 11 Eastern Time. Join Tim Growell, Jim Irizarry, Eric Hansen, and Tyler Horka before the Irish take on the Panthers. This week's guests are Terry Hanratty, Trevor Ruland. So make sure you tune into the Game Day Show again this Saturday, 8 to 11 Eastern Time on Sports Radio WSBT and the Sports Radio WSBT app. To a little doubleheader action. You see Notre Dame beat Pitt in football, and then you see Notre Dame beat Michigan in women's basketball. So could be a really good day for Notre Dame. And,
two really good early season tests for Notre Dame. They get to play Michigan, and then after that, they'll play USC, I believe, at home, both back-to-back ranked matchups. So some exciting basketball coming from the women's team.
I remember last year when they went out to USC early on in the season, and Snoop Dogg was sitting there right at midcourt,
among other celebrities.
Oh yeah, but I remember Snoop very specifically. He had on a very definitive coat, if I remember correctly, and I also definitively remember him leaving early because Notre Dame was putting that whooping on USC. So again, always a good thing to see Notre Dame win against USC. So all right. Here we go. We got one more question in the queue here that we're going to get to, and then we'll head over to the chat and see if we can't finish this thing off. Jesse, what would it take this weekend against Pitt for Jeremiah Love to really enter the Heisman race? So what do you need to see from him this week against Pitt?
Yeah, Vince, I actually have to give our longtime listener Stymie the credit on this one. I think you started in the chat. He said, with Game Day hosting, is this a Heisman audition? That's what made me kind of think of this question. So we're intertwining these right now. It's just you and I until 7 o'clock, baby. So I think that in order for Jeremiah Love to kind of stamp himself and give him that Heisman moment late in the season, Game Day's there. It's a national audition, tryout, whatever you want to call it. Put himself firmly in that kind of final three, position. I think you got to be looking at as close to 200 all-purpose yards and a multiple touchdown game. So, excuse me, I think that this would look like anywhere, north of 150 yards, obviously getting close to 200 all-purpose yards and multiple touchdowns in a game where Notre Dame and Jeremiah Love just dominate. Like he's carrying the team, getting you those tough runs on the perimeter, taking those, wide receiver screens, kind of plays out of the backfield like we talked about earlier in the whiteboard session, breaks a tackle in a one-on-one matchup with a linebacker, and then he's gone to the races. So I think that's what I need and hope to see in the flesh this weekend at Pittsburgh.
Yeah, I think, obviously he's going to need to have a triple-digit day. He's going to have to be over 100 yards. He's going to have somewhat of a long run at some point. For a touchdown, a hurdle, another Heisman moment, kind of an operation, that way he gets a chance to strike a pose in the end zone again, that kind of a thing. I do think that he needs to have some flashy plays, to be honest with you, because he's competing against quarterbacks who have some flashy plays to them. You know what I mean? The Mendoza kid, didn't play well the entire game until the last drive.
It's always sexy to play quarterback.
Well, and he had a really good drive against Penn State to go down there and win the game, right? He was money on that final drive. He didn't play real well up to that point, but that's not what people are going to remember. They're going to remember that final drive, right? It was a Heisman moment for him. And, Jeremiah Love, I think, needs to have double the Heisman moments of any quarterback in order to get any kind of respect right now because of the position that he plays. So I do think he needs at least triple digits. He's going to have a long run. He's going to have to do something flashy. He did it last week against Navy. I think he needs to continue to do it.
Did it the week before against Boston College?
Yeah, absolutely. and he did it against USC. You know, I mean, he's doing it as we go, but, you know, he just needs to continue doing it. He needs to stay in the mindset of all of the voters. You know what I mean? So,
yeah, I think what makes this game even more, if you can have a big game, though, against Pittsburgh, what makes that even more impressive is Pittsburgh is trying to sell out and known to be aggressive in the box and selling out to the run. So if you can break their will when they're trying to, you know, sell out and stop you, I think that's what makes it even more impressive. So seeing him physicality-wise wearing down on Pittsburgh,
yeah,
and then potentially breaking, you know, having that Heisman moment towards, you know, the latter half of the game, and that puts the nail in the coffin. That's what I'm hoping to see.
Agreed. All right, let's get to a couple of comments / questions that came in through the chat earlier on in the show. From Insulator75H, assuming this means Christian Gray is playing then. I think
Yes.
I think that would be accurate. Yes, I think he is going to play this week. There was no reason for him to play against Navy. If he wasn't 100%, there was really
Let's
no
not
reason.
put a banged up shoulder in a defense where you're making a tackle every play, but you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah,
in the run game, that's just perfect week for him to sit out, in my opinion.
100%. Now, this one's directed at me, but I'm going to ask it of you.
Wow.
Joseph Barrett says, Vince, are you concerned?
So nice of you.
Yeah, you know. What are you concerned about Notre Dame women's basketball team being too dependent on Hannah Hidalgo? What happens when an opponent tries to limit her impact with a double team?
Yeah, I think this is a valid question because I think a lot of the offense obviously is running through Hannah Hidalgo, but that's what we want to see. That's not what we want to see. That's who Hannah Hidalgo is. That's kind of when you're a national player of the year, you know, someone who's going to be competing for that, you're known as like that girl, you know, like,
oh yeah,
that's what separates yourself is, you know, they know that you are, you know that you are good enough to take on the responsibility of potentially being double teamed. And then I think also what that means is when she is getting some more difficult double teams, you have to rely on a kind of a wingman or a Robin to your Batman. And I think that's where Cass Prosper has to be this year for Notre Dame. I think that's what's going to be the X factor of how far Notre Dame can really go, is how far can Cass Prosper go / play off Hannah Hidalgo, relieve her sometimes of those double teams, and play, you know, downhill to the hoop.
Yeah, if you're Notre Dame, you have to expect that she's going to get double teamed every single game. I mean,
yeah, like her gameplay is good enough that's
yeah,
what's warranted.
Yes, that is going to be the key every single game. If any team wants to just single cover her and go man to man across the board, like, that's not going to work out too well for them. So every team is going to try to double, and so I think that's just their reality, Joseph. And she is going to need some other people to step up. Obviously, she can't be a one-man show the entire season. And so that is something that I'm sure that they're working on. But she's going to get double teamed every game. There's no doubt in my mind that's
no secret.
Yeah, no, not at all. Justin Kane wants you to make a prediction for this weekend. My prediction comes out with everybody else's tomorrow, so I don't want to, spoil it.
I wanted to get one more point off about Hannah Hidalgo too.
Please do.
I think what also makes her game so different and dynamic is she's not always scoring in just set offenses. Those steals lead to her points, lead to transition points. So a big part of her game that you have to recognize is the defensive side, because the way that she can create easy buckets for herself and her teammates by getting those steals and running in transition. So also moving on to this question, score predictions. I mean, us three are going to be on a show tomorrow. I can't give away my score prediction Thursday night.
Good call. You got to come back. You got to come back and watch the show.
I can't jump the gun. I haven't put in the hours yet to crunch out the numbers.
That's fair. No, that's fair. All right, we're gonna rapid fire these last few because we are literally running out of time. From USMA 87, Jesse, will you be on the spread option show tonight?
No chance. Thursday night is known as wing night with the fellas. Always Thursday night football. We go get wings. Try a different place. It's my turn to pick the wing place tonight, so we will be. We'll be eating some wings.
Selfishly. Look, it's an open invitation for Jesse to jump on to the Spread Option Show anytime that he wants.
I don't want to review my results from last weekend. Can you text that to me, by the way? I just want to know what that turns out to be.
I've got it right here.
You don't need to publicly say it because I don't think it's very good.
That's fair. I will here. I'm gonna literally share it with you right now so that you can see how it went. There you go. I just shared it with you. And so you can check that out at your leisure while you're getting some wings. All right, final question for the night from ND Forever 72. Confidence level that Notre Dame takes care of business on Saturday. A lot of injuries, especially on the D line, and the run blocking has been far from consistent since the bye week.
Yeah, this is a fair question. I never want to say 10 out of 10, so I'm going to go with a solid 9 out of 10. I don't want to be overconfident, but Notre Dame should take care of this, and 9 times out of 10, this is that they should win this game. So yeah, that's what I'm going to go with. I'm not really worried about the whole run blocking thing. You have to understand they've been overwhelmed by teams really trying to stop the run, overcompensate for the run. What you should know is CJ Carr hasn't been sacked since the first quarter of the USC game. They're holding up in pass protection when needed, when teams are loading the box and allowing CJ Carr to air out these defenses, Vince. So if the numbers present themselves, I think that they will clean up that run game.
Look at you, just spitting the analysis for this game. And I listen, I don't disagree with you. I am very confident about Saturday. I am so confident. In fact, I will be watching a different football game during the time that Notre Dame is on. So that's how confident I am.
Look at you being a dad.
Well, it's the last game of the season. I got to go be dad on this one. So I'll be heading up to Hillsdale for a 1:00 kick. So I'll watch the beginning of the Notre Dame game for sure, while I'm tailgating. So, it'll be good. But no, appreciate everybody hanging out with us today. Make sure you tune in. Obviously, tomorrow we'll have another show. And then tonight, 8:00 over on the CFB Nation channel on YouTube. You want to check out the Spread Option with Trev and myself. We'll be going over our best bets for the week that is coming up. So you're definitely going to want to check that out. So for Jesse, I'm Vince, and we're going to talk to you guys next time on Budweiser's Weekday Sports Beat, along with IrishBreakdown.com.